Hi there, welcome to Healing After Infant Loss. The first thing I want to say is that if you're currently experiencing an infant loss or pregnancy loss, or you have done recently, I am so sorry. I am here for you. You are not alone and you can get through this, I promise you. It seems like the hardest thing in the world, but you can get through this and you will. I myself have experienced different kinds of infant loss. So I had 2 miscarriages, one missed miscarriage, one late-term abortion due to medical issues. The baby had Ellis van Creveld. And then I also did embryo freezing, which is also kind of IVF as well. So I've experienced lots of different types of infant loss and I'm here for you. You are not alone and I am so sorry. So with that being said, today I want to talk about what is infant loss and kind of break down a couple of different questions that people might have around the topic. So I have my laptop here and I've got some stats that I'm going to share. Approximately 10 to 20% of known pregnancies end in miscarriage, but when factoring in the very early miscarriages, before a woman even knows that she's pregnant, the number can be closer to 1 in 4. So about 25% of pregnancies end in miscarriage. A missed miscarriage, where the baby has died but there are no immediate signs such as bleeding or pain, occurs in about 1% of pregnancies. Stillbirth, defined as the death of a baby after 20 weeks of pregnancy, occurs in about 1 in 160 pregnancies. Neonatal death, which occurs within the first 28 days of life, happens in about 1 in 1,000 live births in high-income countries. This number can be higher in lower-income regions. And it's estimated that about 1 in 4 pregnancies worldwide ends in abortion, though this can vary widely depending on the country and access to reproductive health care. So when I was looking online to kind of do some research for this video, apparently there are 200,000 abortions per day, which is about 73 million abortions per year. And I just feel like as a whole, we're just not talking about infant loss enough, whether it is miscarriage, missed miscarriage, neonatal death, stillbirth or abortion. I feel like we need to talk about this more in terms of how it affects us personally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and just kind of the whole process, because I feel like it's just not talked about enough. So that's a little bit of the stats and the information there. I think it's really hard for people to understand pregnancy loss and infant loss unless you actually go through it yourself. And I think a lot of people who have never experienced it really struggle to connect with people who have experienced it and really struggle to maybe not even find empathy, because I think a lot of people are very empathetic, but it's hard to know the right things to say or the right information, or kind of it's hard to know how to help somebody. So I hope this video helps just kind of make it a little bit clearer as to what infant loss is and the different types of infant loss that there are. So we're now going to talk about different types of infant loss, and I'm only going to talk about the 5 that I mentioned earlier with regards to the statistics. So miscarriage, missed miscarriage, stillbirth, neonatal death and abortion. A miscarriage is the loss of a pregnancy before 20 weeks. So a lot of people know they are pregnant roughly around 6 weeks, I would say, and so up until week 20 is a miscarriage, and 20 weeks is actually quite far along. If you think a pregnancy is about 40 weeks, it's roughly halfway, so it's quite a good chunk of time to get attached to the baby, to feel connected to the baby, to plan the baby, to plan, buy clothes and think about names and things like that. So up until 20 weeks, if you lose the pregnancy, that is a miscarriage. A missed miscarriage is when the baby dies in the womb, but the body doesn't realise that you've had a miscarriage. So this happened to me. I was about 11.5 weeks pregnant. I went in for a scan and the baby was measuring 6 weeks. So I knew that the baby had just stopped growing, and I still felt pregnant. I still had sore boobs and I still felt all the pregnancy symptoms. It's just that the baby wasn't carry on growing. The next one is stillbirth. So stillbirth is the loss of a pregnancy after 20 weeks of pregnancy. So between 20 weeks and 40 weeks, if the baby dies, that is considered a stillbirth. Stillbirth is often unexpected as well, so it can just happen all of a sudden. I have never experienced stillbirth, but I imagine it would be really traumatic. The next one is neonatal death, and this occurs when a baby is born alive but dies within the first 28 days of life. Neonatal deaths can be due to prematurity, birth defects, or complications during birth. Again, I have never experienced neonatal death, so I can't speak from personal experience, but that just sounds devastating. And if you go through that, I am so sorry. I honestly couldn't imagine it. And then the last one is abortion, and this is when a pregnancy is ended. I think abortion has a bad rep because people think that abortion is used as birth control, which I don't think is the case a lot of the time. A lot of the time people get pregnant without realising they're pregnant, without trying to get pregnant. Abortion is kind of a way for people to not have a baby, the responsibility, the finances, or the rest of it of having a baby. But also it can be lots of different reasons, for rape, for incest, for medical issues. For me personally, I was 6.5 months pregnant and found out that the baby had Ellis van Creveld, which is a really serious disorder. But yeah, it's very controversial and I understand that, but it is also something that I do think we need to talk about more and more openly, and discuss it as a group of people, let's say. So let's move on to causes of infant loss. And I think this is a really hard topic to cover, especially because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. So maybe I'll try and talk to somebody in the future who can spread some more light on that. But I know, having had 2 miscarriages and a missed miscarriage, I have no idea why those pregnancies didn't last, why they didn't stick. My first miscarriage was at 5 weeks. I had only just found out I was pregnant. I then had a miscarriage at 8 weeks in Cuba, and then a missed miscarriage, like I said, I was about 11 and a half weeks, measuring 6 weeks. I have no medical explanation as to why they didn't work, why they miscarried and had a missed miscarriage. I did go in for testing and they found that everything was normal, there was no issues, there was nothing to worry about, so I still have no answers to those questions. And then obviously with the abortion, I understand completely why we did that, and it was because of the medical issues that the baby had. But in terms of neonatal death, in terms of stillbirth, I think it can be really hard to understand why certain pregnancies end and other pregnancies are completely fine. Obviously, like I said, I'm not a medical professional, so I will try and speak to somebody about that and maybe have them on as a guest, and we can discuss the different types of infant loss and why it happens. I think it's hard as well because it's very easy to blame yourself. I remember with my first miscarriage, we found out on the Friday that I was pregnant. On the Monday, my husband went away for work, and on the Wednesday I woke up bleeding and I had sore tummy and I was having a miscarriage. And I remember feeling so guilty and thinking, oh my gosh, my husband's gone away for work for 5 days and I can't even keep a baby alive inside me. Like, I can't even do that. I can't even keep a baby alive that's 5 weeks old. How on earth am I supposed to keep it alive when it's actually alive and born and all the rest of it? And I think it's very easy to place blame on ourselves, to think, oh my gosh, what did I do wrong? Did I eat something wrong? Did I jump up and down too fast? We don't do anything to cause the miscarriages or the missed miscarriages. It is just something that happens, and it's so hard to get your head around that. I also fell into kind of a victim mentality of, why me? Why can't I get pregnant? Or why can't I keep a pregnancy? Why can't I keep a baby alive? That was always my kind of struggle and my pain, and I saw lots of friends around me getting pregnant and having healthy births and pregnancies, and that was quite triggering as well. So it's very easy to blame ourselves, but honestly, it's not your fault. The fact that you had a miscarriage or a missed miscarriage or a stillbirth or a neonatal death is not your fault. It's nothing that you did wrong. You're not to blame. There's nothing you could have done differently. And I really want you to try and take that away, because I know that when I was going through all these things, I just felt so guilty and like I'd done something wrong and my body wasn't working properly, and why me? And you really can't think like that. You really need to try and stay positive and also just almost detach yourself a little bit from it and think, it's nothing that I did wrong. It's nothing that my body did wrong. It is just the way it is. It just happens in life, and it has done for, years and years and years, and it's going to continue to happen as well unless we find some way to fix it. But I think it's just the way that nature is. So the next topic I want to talk about is the emotional impact of infant loss. I know for myself, I've experienced a huge array of emotions when it comes to infant loss, from feeling angry, feeling sad, feeling helpless, feeling hopeful, feeling guilty, feeling overwhelmed, feeling numb, feeling depressed, feeling suicidal. All of the emotions come into play, and it can be really hard to navigate, especially if you're kind of figuring it out alone or if you don't have close people you can talk to. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so maybe speak to somebody, a professional, if you think you really want, help with this. But I think it's important to feel your feelings and to try to process them as best you can. There's lots of different ways that you can go about this. I remember at the time after the abortion, I felt like I was drowning and I couldn't come up for air. I just felt so deep and down in my depression. I had no idea how to escape. I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I just couldn't figure it out. We ended up moving to Miami for my husband's work. And I think that's where I really started my healing journey, where I went to yoga classes, I went to meditations, cacao ceremonies, daybreaker, women's circles, ecstatic dance ceremonies. We went to all these different things, and I think each time I healed a little bit more. And I didn't realize that's what was happening. I didn't go to these events to heal myself. But I think over the course of 3 years when I was in Miami, I think doing these different healing modalities really, really helped me. So what I've got on my website is a list of resources. So there's books that you can read, there are podcasts you can listen to, there are Instagram pages to follow. But there's also information about different healing modalities like yoga, meditation, sound baths, journaling, affirmations. I'm probably forgetting some. And on each page I've got a paragraph where I talk about my experience. I've got some information, and then I've also got some videos at the bottom where you can either practice practice or watch a video to learn more about each of these healing modalities. So if you want to go ahead and find them, they're all on my website, healingafterinfantloss.com. But I think maybe finding other people who have been through something similar could also be helpful. So maybe you want to follow me on Instagram or find other Instagram accounts where they talk about infant loss and pregnancy loss. You could also find support groups, or you could also find a therapist or a psychologist or someone to talk to, a professional, because I think it's different talking to somebody who is trained and somebody who's kind of separate from your group than it is to talking to your mum or your friend or your husband or whoever it is, because they're more attached emotionally and I feel like you can't always say exactly what you want to say, whereas with a therapist you can kind of let it all out there and say exactly what you want to say. So I would recommend finding help as well. I will leave my website below if you want to go on there and find some information. So this was a very quick overview of understanding what is infant loss. I hope you found it helpful, whether you're experiencing infant loss yourself or maybe you know somebody who is. I'm going to be creating more videos here on YouTube with more information, and like I said, hopefully speaking to some professionals about what they think and their opinions and their science as well, you know, the studies and the figures and the facts and all the information. So stay tuned, subscribe. But the main thing I want you to take away from this is that you are not alone. If you're experiencing something like this, you really are not alone. There are so many people in the world. Like I said, 73 million abortions per year. 73 million per year, and that's just abortions. That's not including miscarriage, miscarriage, stillbirth, neonatal death. There's so many people going through this, and I don't know if that helps or not. I remember when I was going through this, I just thought, yeah, but I don't care. I don't care about the people, I care about me. I'm going through this. And if you're in the same headspace, I completely understand. But also I think it can be comforting not to know that other people are suffering, but just to know that there are people who are experiencing a similar thing. And even though that's not nice, it can just feel like, oh my gosh, there's somebody who understands how I feel, and I'm not a freak or a weirdo for feeling a certain way, for feeling however I feel. So make sure you try and find people that are in a similar situation. I think that could be really, really helpful for you as well. So the affirmation of the week is, I can do hard things. This is literally my favourite affirmation of all time. I'm gonna have to move my legs because they're going numb. But the affirmation, I can do hard things, I use this all the time for myself, whether I'm hiking a volcano in the middle of the night in Indonesia, or if I am doing weights at the gym, if I am whatever it is, I tell myself I can do hard things. And I've experienced a fair bit of trauma in my time in terms of the infant losses. I have also lost my grandmother recently. I've also dealt with health issues of my parents. So I think it's one of those affirmations that I really keep with me all the time. I can do hard things. And I've proven to myself time and time again that I can do hard things. And I'm sure if you think back on your life, you can prove to yourself that you also can do hard things. And I think infant loss is one of the hardest things you can go through, but you can do it. You can do hard things, you can get through this, and you will come out the other end. And also there is life to live. I remember when I was going through the abortion, like I said, I couldn't see the end of the tunnel. I was suicidal. I just didn't see the point in living anymore. And then the past couple of years, I have really had the most amazing time, and I have some of my best days ever. And when you're having your worst days ever, it's really hard to understand, it's really hard to realise that your best days are yet to come, but they really, really are. So just remember, I can do hard things, you can do hard things. And if you're having a bit of a down day, or if you're having a bit of a struggle or a tough situation, a tough conversation, just remember to yourself, I can do hard things, I can get through this, and I can come out the other side. So the book of the week is Surviving the Unthinkable, The Loss of a Child. This is by Janice Bell Meisenhelder. I'm also dyslexic and ADHD, so I might struggle sometimes pronouncing words and names, but it's called Surviving the Unthinkable, The Loss of a Child. This book provides a compassionate and insightful look at the profound grief parents experience after losing their child. The book offers comfort, understanding, and practical advice to help navigate the journey of healing. If you're looking for a book that truly, truly understands the depth of your pain, this book is a must read, so I'm going to leave it linked down below, the Amazon link, so you can go ahead and shop. The other option is to look at libraries. If you've got a local library, maybe you can rent it from there for free. Audiobooks is also a great way to get information. That's personally how I read books, I listen to them. So I really hope you found this video helpful and useful. Like I said, I will leave the website down below, I will leave my Instagram and TikTok down below, and then also the book recommendation and any other resources that I find. But please just know you are not alone and you can do hard things. I'm with you, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.